I'm Chris Egan, editor of Tabletop Gaming Magazine. I'm here today to ask you, have you played Sagrada? So Sagrada is a dice drafting and window crafting game. You use the 90 delicious dice in this bag to build and craft yourself a beautiful stained glass window. You can see we've already started this one. Fit for Gaudi himself. So, how does it work? Players always draw the number of dice plus one. So in this case, if I was doing a two-player game, I would draw 5 dice, roll them, and then take turns drafting them. These frames are built up of a combination of the frame board, which is double-sided, and these beautiful cards that slide inside there. These range in a level of difficulty from easy here with 3 points up to more difficult 5 marks. So, how do you place your dice? You have to follow some very basic rules. For example, in this slot right here, in this window pane right here, you can only fit a dice that matches the 3 pips there. So, for example, we could, in theory, place this red 3 right there, and that would be fine. Equally, in this yellow slot here, naturally, only a yellow dice can go. So that's great. Pretty simple, right? Well, it gets more complex as you fill up your window pane and you find yourself with less and less options about where to place things. Because not only is the board dictating what you're doing in this little window puzzle, you also have some other rules as well. These are: you cannot have 2 dice of the same colour next to each other, except diagonally. Diagonally is okay, that doesn't count as adjacent. Equally, dice of the same number or value can't go adjacent to each other. This means you're going to have to pick out dice carefully from the pool to decide where they're going to fit in your window. Naturally, like all dice drafting Euro games of this style, we're going to be swearing at our other players every time they pick a dice that we wanted. You may want this blue dice here with the high number 6 on it. We'll get on to why you might want the blue dice more than another dice in just a moment. But if it's taken by your opponent, you're going to be left with less optimal choices. And yet again, you're going to be sent into a tailspin of puzzly decisions. At the beginning of the game, each player takes one of these agenda cards, which represents the dice that you're going to be secretly trying to collect the most of during the game. And these are all very simple, so you're just going to be trying to pick up purple, green, blue, red or yellow dice. And at the end of the game, the numbers displaying on each of those dice will give you points. For example, a yellow 5 and a yellow 2 would give you 7 points at the end of the game. Of course, this can be way more than that because you're going to have nearly filled in your beautiful window. But that's not all. Players, based on the difficulty of the window blueprint they're following, will take a number of these favour tokens. So if you were going to use this blueprint here, you'd take 3 favour tokens. And these are used on your turn for the public tools, which you can see here. These are tools that allow you to, most of the time, break the rules. If you need to change the number of a dice, or increase it up 1, or redraft a dice from a bag, or all of those sort of mechanics, this is where you do it. The first player to do it, simply on their turn, places a favour token and then takes the action. The second player on a turn, however, has to pay more than that, so they have to pay 2. This means that your ability to change the dice in your tableau, in your window, is limited to the amount of players around the table and how much you want to spend. You might find yourself, for example, without enough tokens to pick the action you need to change the dice you want, therefore making you pass the turn. It's a tricky, interesting little puzzle of a game. At the end of each round, once everyone's drafted all of their dice, the last dice goes on the track here to represent the round having passed. There's always going to be at least 1 dice left because you're always rolling more dice than the number of players by 1. Except in the solo mode where you You might have other options. You may have more dice. If you have more dice, just chuck the excess ones away. We're just counting the tracks here because players might pass, you see. Other ways to score points are these other window blueprints over here. Now, these give you design options, aesthetic options for how to score points in your window. So throughout the game, if, for example, if you picked the column color variety as one of the things you wanted to try and score from these public blueprints, you would try and ensure that you don't have any repeating colors in any column of your window. So in this example here, we can see that this row at the end of the game would gain you 5 points. So this game, in the end, is all about greed. It's about you deciding where you're going to put your efforts to gain the most points. Sometimes the public cards, which allow you to gain a huge number of points, they're going to be conflicting in some way. You're going to have to think, do I really want to try and get colour variety in columns and number variety in rows? Or is that simply going to be too difficult? What am I going to sacrifice first as you play through? And deciding how greedy you're going to be at any moment and deciding when the right moment is to sort of flip your puzzle around by using the public tools or drafting particular dice or indeed abandoning one of your goals because it's become impossible is the name of the game. So why should you play Sagrada? Why are we asking, have you played Sagrada? The answer is it's a deeply tactile, very nice looking game. It's just enjoyable to pick up dice and to roll them. The dice are simple, brightly coloured, and sound nice when you roll them. You're building something nice, and a lot of games, and this is a theme we return to often, but a lot of games are very dry, and they're about very, I'm going to say, boring subjects. Now, being a glazier for a famous cathedral, it might not still be the most exciting thing in the world, but when you're playing this, you're always building something better. You look down at the end of the game, even if you've not won, you're always going to have something nice to look at. And in these strange times, finding a game that's just about the joy of rolling some dice, picking some things up, and looking at the beautiful things you can create, is probably worth highlighting. And if you don't have a group of people around you right now for various reasons, you can always play the solo mode, which is an excellent beat the points kind of mode. Instead of rolling more than a number of players, because there's only one and rolling 2 dice would be not quite right, you just roll 4 dice. You roll those 4 dice, you draft them in the same way. You take 2 goes, as you normally would, but you don't need to use favour coins. Instead of favour tokens, you're using dice from the pool on the tools. They can only be used once per round, once per game, sorry. To perform the action. So now you're in a position in the solo game where not only are you having to think about which dice you're going to take, you're also thinking about which dice you can spare to fix other problems in your window. And that's not all, because once you've taken all your dice and you move that final dice over to the scoreboard, it is this score that displays on the scoreboard. That is the score you're trying to beat. So you're always in control of what you're up against. So while you might not want to take that high numbered dice of the wrong colour, it might be beneficial to you to do that if it gives you some minor benefit. Which it's one of the kind of nicest versions of solo gaming in when you're doing this kind of points races, where you, the player, are entirely in control of everything that's happening around you, and it's only ever going to be your own fault that you've failed in your mission. So then, how does scoring work? We flip this over. Players place their coloured pieces based on each of the colours of these player boards on the score track, and you score them up as per the cards. So, thank you very much for watching. If you like what we're doing here, pick up a subscription to the magazine. Visit us at tabletopgaming.co.uk. Visit us on our social channels. Subscribe to the YouTube channel as well, right here. Click on that button. Thank you for watching. I'm Chris Eckert. This is Tabletop Gaming. Play on. Bye.